Damn, that's fabulous. Hello, everyone. For this video, we're going to be discussing the concept of genetic superiority. It's a term that gets thrown out a lot in this community, and I just wanted to take a moment to call out that people who've posited the idea of quote unquote genetic superiority or tried to practice eugenics in history have been thoroughly humiliated. And we're going to be looking at some objective examples in this video about how the idea is just a little bit ridiculous. And this is sort of a response to a comment I got a few days ago where someone was telling me that face is absolutely an indicator of good genes, as is height, and that there are algorithms that can predict with accuracy if a person is a criminal based on their face alone, which, as we discussed, phrenology, which was a study by Joseph Franz Gall, which has been greatly discredited, basically said the same thing, that you could predict the likelihood of someone being a criminal based on their skull shape, but that has been long debunked. But anyway, what I wanted to show you is that there's frequencies of different genes amongst all types of people, right? And that the example that I often cite is that, you can have a Chad who is predisposed to cancer, osteoporosis, heart disease, things that can make him a genetic dead end. But you can't tell any of that from his face or his height, right? So let's look at some examples. So black pillars love to discuss empirical data. So here's some empirical data, right? We know that the Netherlands has the highest average male height in the world, right? With 6 feet average. Now, if you look at Japan, the average height is about 5'7". So, on average, a Japanese male is about 5 inches shorter, than a male from the Netherlands. So fair enough. Where am I going with this, right? Well, would you just look at that? The Netherlands, the tallest country in the world, took 11th place in the 2016 Olympics, having fewer medals than several countries with much shorter average heights, such as South Korea, Japan, China. I mean, even Great Britain and the United States, actually every country had a lesser average height, but you get the idea. And everybody talks about the Swedes, right? They're such chads, they're so tall and good looking. So surely they must have, oh wait, they took 29th place. Oh look, hey, Colombia beat them. Isn't the average height there 5'6"? I could be wrong though. And I don't really think it gets much more empirical, than the Olympics, which is a sample size of the greatest athletes that every country in the world has to offer. So for those of you who are saying, you're cherry picking, yeah, I would say the Olympics is pretty empirical. Hey, speaking of the Olympics, you guys remember that silly time in the 1936 Olympics when Adolf Hitler espoused the idea that the Aryan race was genetically superior? Yeah, you guys remember when the Aryans went on to win the 100-meter dash and Max Schmeling clobbered Joe Louis when it came to boxing? Yeah, I remember that too, as if it were just yesterday. I just read it in the history textbooks, actually. Yeah, fun times, fun times. Oh, wait, nope, just kidding. It was Jesse Owens who won the 100-meter dash, taking the gold, proving himself to be the fastest sprinter in the world. Not an Aryan. Oh, wait, it was also Joe Louis who beat Max Schnelling in boxing and took the gold there. Yeah, it didn't really go so well for Hitler at the 1936 Olympics. And not only did Hitler have egg on his face after being humiliatingly defeated at the Olympics, but it was also the Russians, ironically, who surrounded him in his bunker and forced him to take his own life. And the irony, of course, there is that they considered Slavic people to be subhuman. Well, it was the subhumans who handed Hitler his ass not only on the world stage in the Olympics, but also ended up defeating him in World War II. Now, when we look at countries with the highest averages IQ, right, we see Hong Kong, we see Singapore have an average IQ of 108. You also see South Korea with 106, Japan with 105. And we notice the trend that these are all countries located in Asia. And this begs the question, is it genetic? Is it environmental? But they all seem to be in the same place. But again, is this an objective measure of genetic superiority, or is there something more at play here? But we'll come back to where I'm going with this. The next thing I wanted to look at is to the person in the comments who is saying that, its face and height are indicators of quote unquote good genes. You'll often notice that a lot of times professional athletes aren't really known for being handsome, right? The same way that Hollywood actors aren't known for their athletic prowess. Let's look at, LeBron James here and Brad Pitt, right? So LeBron James is a great athlete, arguably one of the greatest basketball players of all times, but nobody really talks about how handsome of a guy he is or, how beautiful his face is. Now, conversely, Brad Pitt, women gush over Brad Pitt and his looks are his calling cards, or his calling card rather, but obviously he can't compete in professional sports in any type of capacity. He would get his clock cleaned. So, and I mean, yes, you can say this is just an anecdote, but, let's try to name, professional athletes that are seen as really, really attractive. You might come up with like Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, but it's the average professional athlete isn't exactly known for being handsome. You might have a case for the height thing, right? Since professional athletes do tend to be taller. But when it comes to correlation with a face, you're going to have a very hard time, making a case there. So I think this should serve as a good example that the two aren't necessarily correlated. But I don't want to come off this subject just yet, and I did want to call out that we talked about professional athletes being taller. However, raw strength and speed aren't entirely dependent on height. It's actually the types of muscle fibers, which is also genetic, but it's not correlated to height. For example, you can see Mike Tyson and Terrell Biggs here. Mike Tyson, made a career out of beating the crap out of guys who are a lot taller than him. Terrell Biggs is 6'5", and Mike Tyson is 5'10". Look at this brutal height mog. And the thing about Mike Tyson, too, is he didn't win by technicalities or, running away. He won by brute force and destroying his opponents. Check this out.
Oh, that was a tremendous left hand. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How do you feel, Coach? Okay? Oh, this is it. He is gone right now. He has no legs at all. And 10 seconds to go in a round. There's a left hand. He's down again. It's over. It's all over. And it wasn't even close. And what we've seen is...
So, as you can see, Mike Tyson just knocked Terrell Biggs around here. It wasn't even close, as the announcer said, "It's over." So, the thing here is that Mike Tyson could bench press 200 pounds when he was 12 years old. And so, obviously, he was genetically gifted, just not so much vertically. But the point is, when it comes to muscle fibers, type A, type 1, type 2, fast twitch, and slow twitch, you can't tell by looking at a person, their composition. You wouldn't be able to tell that by looking at their face or their height. There's no way you could ascertain that. In high school, my state champion in cross country was a 5'7" guy. So, how would you know? Yes, I guess having a longer stride length, would be advantageous. But you can't tell, what kinds of muscle fibers somebody has, the composition, the amount of mitochondria in their cells, when they hit lactic acid fermentation as opposed to another person. There's no way you can tell that, by looking at their appearance. So refuting that comment in the comment section there is that like a lot of things that are genetic are not visible to the naked eye. Anyway, let's bring this all together with the final thoughts. So, as you can see, that people throughout history have adapted to environments differently, and some people are advantaged in some areas and disadvantaged in others. And largely this was due to the kind of environments that they were brought up in. So you can make the case, really, that environment has a lot more impact on the final result, right? The expression of the genes than the actual genes themselves. But you can't conclude that any type of person is genetically superior to another. And, Hitler tried to make that assertion, and he was thoroughly humiliated on a world stage. Joseph Franz Gall tried to make that assertion with phrenology that you could predict based on somebody's skull shape, their likelihood of being a criminal. And, he was debunked. So, again, if you're going along with that narrative, you absolutely should be mocked and ridiculed. because, you know, it's been proven time and time again to be ridiculous. But I see it so much in this community, and I get it. You know, people want, you know, objective and empirical ways to measure things, but when you bring, you know, human psychology and, you know, human behavior into it, you know, you can't really do that. There's no way to, you know, empirically measure that. This is human beings, not math problems that we're talking about. So anyway, that's today's video, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.